so that we can have something for the ones who are not here or the ones who want to look at it later again, etc., etc. So we are recording, and welcome to Innovation and Transformation. Now it would be wonderful, that worked. So admission has succeeded. This is great. All right. Okay. In terms of the course, we were somewhere around innovation strategy, if I recall that correctly. Then we have squeezed in a block of innovation and transformation and the idea generation as of last week. Now we continue with innovation strategy. We will probably wrap up innovation strategy. And next week on our agenda, there's the Christmas lecture. It is a lecture that relates to innovation, that relates to trends. And the only thing that is new here, and I will post it online as well, but to give you a heads up, the Christmas lecture will, of course, be recorded, as it will be online as well. And the synchronous part of this lecture will happen between 10:15 and 11:45. So in the morning, and not as you are used to in the late afternoon. So if we run into some overlap here, please, with other courses, please forgive me. But as I said, I will record, and you will have no strategic disadvantage if you can't attend it. But what you should do is, of course, you should look at it at a certain point. We will talk about Christmas, we will talk about trends, and we will talk about innovation. So if you want to prepare yourself for the Christmas lecture, I think it would be nice if you had a nice hot coffee, a nice hot chocolate around, something like that, a hot drink that reminds you of the season. So that's the idea. We wrap up this year with something a little bit Christmas related. Okay, good. If there is questions, etc., please let me know. Is there questions already? Is there something that we should clarify? I know I still owe you clarification on the process, how we proceed with the teams that were not complete last week. We're still working on something that is doable for you, and this is doable for us. I'll let you know as soon as we in the team have made a decision how we proceed and how we do this. There will be, what I can tell you, there will be nothing happening prior to Christmas. So don't be anxious, don't be afraid. Nothing will happen prior to Christmas. At least not the act in itself, but the communication, of course, will happen prior to Christmas. Okay, good. Anything else that we should clarify? I hope my voice makes it for the next hour and a half. We will see to this. Okay, good. Nothing that I can see on. No raised hands, nothing happens in the chat. So why not just continue? We're talking about innovation strategy, and we will be talking about the fact that knowledge is a key determinant of competitive success. That there is an idea out there that a firm's capability or its ability to exploit knowledge, to use knowledge for its business, is the key capability that firms actually have. So what we will learn is that a corporate strategy, so the long-term idea, the long-term process, the long-term idea of a company, may include or has to include, should include an innovation strategy, which relates to the question of how knowledge is actually accumulated. Somebody asked whether I've already uploaded the slides, and if I am not mistaken, the slides should be the ones that I uploaded the last time that when we have met each other. I hope that this is correct. Yes, it should be there. It should be there. The slide deck that is called Elias Part 3, which is the PowerPoint slide deck, not the PDF slide deck, the PowerPoint slide deck. We are currently on page 27. Here it says 25, but in the slide deck that I have uploaded, it's on 27. Okay, so you should actually be able to access it. It's the one that I uploaded. The system says on November 14th. Okay. All right. And we will talk a little bit about corporate strategy, how it is embedded in the external environment, etc. So this is the key messages. This is the key ideas here in this lecture. Good. Now, we have started discussing innovation with discussing theories of innovation and theories of the firm, and try to see how innovation plays a role there. And we continue this as well when we look at the innovation strategy. So I will introduce you to two different types of theories of the firm, which are, you might say, closely related. So they're brothers and sisters or nephews in a broad sense. We start with the resource-based view. The resource-based view deviates from the Bain-type industrial organization idea. Remember, the Bain-type industrial organization idea tells us that competitiveness of a firm depends on the external conditions, on industry attractiveness. This is why Bain-type IO has been brought into corporate strategy by Michael Porter's five forces. So, and the resource-based view deviates from that. It says, well, it's not only the external conditions of attractiveness that make a firm competitive or not. It is, of course, also the internal conditions of the firm. So it is not the outside. So the opportunities and the threats, but it's also, and this is, the resource-based view type of idea, it's also the internal factors of the firm. So the firm's strengths and weaknesses. We haven't really heard about this in the theories of corporate, of competitive advantage that we have discussed. So it's also the internal view, the strengths and weaknesses of the firms that determine competitiveness. And the strengths of the weaknesses, the resource-based view defines them by the resources that the firm actually commands. So firms compete on the basis of their resources. The logic is here, if you have superior resources or superior resource endowment, that allows the firm to build better products, better meet consumer needs, better address or better reap the consumer's willingness to pay. And so this is the kind of logic here. Now, we said firm strengths and weaknesses depends on their endowment of resources. The question generally here would probably be, what are resources? What is a resource? And very simply, a resource can be anything that is considered a strength or a weakness of an organization. So it can be here three broad categories: physical capital resources, human capital resources, and organizational capital resources. Physical capital resources would be something like the technology that the firm has, the plants that a firm has, the establishments, the buildings, the equipment, etc. This is the physical capital resources. The human capital resources are, for instance, the cleverness, the intelligence of your employees, of the individuals, the experience of the individuals, the knowledge, the capabilities, the abilities, and the skills of the individuals. That's all human capital resources. And of course, then we have organizational capital resources. That would be something like formal, informal planning, coordination system, controlling, so management accounting system, etc. So this is an idea what these kind of resources are. And the resource-based view of the firm now says or assumes that resources are not spread evenly across firms. So there is differences in resource endowment between firms. So firms are heterogeneous with regards to resources. And this heterogeneity is sort of long-lasting. It's pretty sticky to the firms because typically resources are not perfectly mobile across firms. So trading these resources may not necessarily work very well. So human capital resources, think about this. People tend to be very sticky towards a firm when they like to work for this firm. So it's not that easy, they're not perfectly mobile. Of course, the plants, the equipment, the technology is also not perfectly mobile. So this heterogeneity consists over a longer period of time. And the competitive advantage is generated and maintained if competitors cannot perfectly duplicate the corporate strategy. If they cannot perfectly duplicate what the firm is actually doing, and they can't because we have a heterogeneity of resources, and the resources are not perfectly mobile, and that for a longer period of time, so the competitive advantage is actually sustained. Now, not every resource gives the firm a competitive advantage. So sources of sustained competitive advantage should have 4 properties. They should be valuable, they should be rare, they should be inimitable, and they should be not substitutable. So in short, take the first letters of these properties. Then people sometimes say the resources have to be RIN, valuable, rare, inimitable, non-substitutable. Valuable means that these resources help the firm to create and implement strategies and that create value for customers. Rare means that there is more organizations out there that want to obtain the resources than there are resources. So not everybody who wants this resource can actually have it. Inimitable is it's hard or expensive to replicate, so you cannot easily duplicate it. And non-substitutable is that it is for the value creation process. This resource is important. It is crucial, and it cannot be replaced by an equivalent. So it cannot be replaced by a substitute. Okay. So think about you come to a firm. You're a consultant. You're a consultant, and you come to a firm, and this firm says, "Oh, I have this this beautiful product. For my competitive advantage, I need this machine. And this machine is an off-the-shelf machine that you could buy actually at any machine store. How would you respond as a consultant if this manager comes to you and said, I need this machine for my competitive advantage? How would you respond? How would you respond? So you would probably open a kind of a bullet list with checkboxes, and there would be 4 bullets, like valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable. So let's look at this machine. This manager tells you it's valuable because we need it for our process. Okay, we can tick or we can check the valuable box. Non-substitutable, we need it really, so we cannot use anything else for that. Wonderful. Yes, probably checkbox here. Inimitable, well, depending on how the machine is built, can it be replicated? Can it be duplicated? Maybe not, maybe it can, but the problem is the rare. When you buy something off the shelf that is not custom made for you, which is not custom made for your business, everybody can buy it. Everybody can buy it on the market. Your competitors can, etc. So it's not rare. So it's very unlikely that this machine will give the company a sustained competitive advantage. If you compare this, who of you knows Swarovski? Who of you knows Swarovski? Have you run into Swarovski? Have you purchased something by them? What does Swarovski actually do? Swarovski. What do they do? What do they sell? What do they produce? Okay. Do we have somebody here who knows what Swarovski actually does?
I think they make glass.
Exactly, they make glass. What they do is they modify glass, they grind glass in a way that it looks like precious stones. Okay, so they take raw glass, high quality raw glass, and grind it in a way that it looks like diamonds or stuff like this. Okay, so this is what they do, and they sell it in their shops. They sell it to clothing manufacturers, to furniture manufacturers, all sorts of things. So they are very much into glass. They are, in Austria, probably the second or third largest machine tool producer. They have a machine tool engineering department of approximately 500 people. Why do they have this? Well, exactly for the RIN reason. The machines to grind the glass, to polish the glass, etc., are valuable. They create what customers like, the shiny, sparkling, tiny glass crystals. They are non-substitutable. You cannot, for most of the stuff they do, you cannot replace a machine for polishing it. You can do it by hand, but you know that's not an option. And they produce the machines themselves, so they make it hard for their competitors to replicate these machines, to copy this machine. So it's inimitable, and they are rare because they're not selling these machines to everybody else. So what they do is they use their resources. They build their machine tool. They build their physical resources themselves and make it their physical resources, their technology. They build it themselves and make it run by doing so, and by protecting the whole machine tool department. So suddenly you start looking at a company that does bijou, jewelry items, and suddenly you realize, wow, they have a large machine tool department. Why does that make sense? And when you have the idea of the resource-based view, suddenly it makes sense what they do with this and why they do it. All right, good. Now, and we haven't talked about knowledge here, although we kicked off the whole discussion with knowledge. And the interesting part in the resource-based view actually is that the resource-based view looks at knowledge as something very generic. Knowledge is, they think knowledge is something like a public good. You can't well protect it, etc. Where it flows, and there's knowledge spillover. So knowledge cannot be the source of sustained competitive advantage. And there comes in, as I said, the tiny nephew or the tiny brother of the resource-based view is the knowledge-based view of the firm. The knowledge-based view of the firm says exactly, with regard to the knowledge, the opposite. Firms exist because they have the ability to manage knowledge more efficiently than that would be possible under any other type of organization. So firms' raison d'etre actually is working and managing with knowledge. So firms, the knowledge-based view holds, are social organizations that use knowledge, store knowledge, competences, capabilities, etc. And they work with knowledge. They use the knowledge, exploit the knowledge, and the better you are as a firm to use and exploit this knowledge, the more competitive advantage you have. So in contrast to the resource-based view, the knowledge-based view holds that knowledge is the strategically most important resource for competitive advantage of a firm. Okay, so this is the difference. Knowledge, well, you probably have talked about knowledge in great length in other courses. Just to repeat, there is an important distinction between tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is something that resides in the people's minds, and explicit knowledge is knowledge that could be available open in the public, that could be written down in a say in a database, in a wiki document, etc. The tacitness of knowledge brings value to the firm because it cannot be acquired easily. Tacit stuff that you have in your mind is really hard to acquire. Copying is costly, even though when you can identify the knowledge and the knowledge bearer, which is the person. Tacit knowledge, as I said, explicit knowledge can be written down easily, put in a database, put in a wiki, put in a knowledge management system, etc. But tacit knowledge, as such, is hard to be written down, and sometimes it can only be learned from observation and from subsequent practicing. So also it is hard to transfer this knowledge without the observation and without the subsequent practicing. Do you have an idea where we really see this learning from observation and subsequent practicing? Where do you see this? Have you experienced this ever? Oh, you certainly have. Imagine you want to learn how to do how to manage formatting templates in Word. Of course, you can read a paper or read a wiki on that, but it's much easier for you to learn this tacit knowledge from looking at somebody who shows you how to do it and from doing it after that yourself. So this kind of master-apprentice relationship, where the master transfers knowledge, how things are generated, how to build a table in terms of a carpenter, how to cook a boeuf bourguignon in terms of a chef, etc. You can learn as an apprentice by observation and then by doing it yourself. This is a way of how tacit knowledge is transferred. Explicit knowledge, on the contrast, is easily accessible. Once it's written down, it's written down. So what we learned is that tacit knowledge is really, really important. And what we have also argued for in the knowledge-based view of the firm is that firm performance strongly depends on how firms work with this knowledge, how firms manage this knowledge, how firms exploit this knowledge. Because, as I already said, firm performance strongly depends on the firm's ability to, find, absorb, exploit knowledge from both internal sources, so your employees, your internal system, and of course, external system, external sources. That would then relate to an innovation strategy that is called open innovation. We will probably not talk about this, but you may have heard about this already. So the firms will perform better when they're able to do this, find, absorb, exploit this knowledge, and when they are able to protect their knowledge. How do you protect knowledge? Well, you have knowledge protection rights, so patents. You can use secrecy. You can make things overly complicated, overly complex, etc. This would be some issues. Contractual arrangements like non-disclosure agreements, etc., fall under this category as well. Okay, so firm performance and knowledge are intricately combined here. So what is really interesting is that as firms are social entities, they consist of people. It is people who create, store, and use knowledge. So the firm's nature as a social entity is very, very important. And what is also important in the discussion of the knowledge-based view of the firms is how knowledge is transferred from one person to another. How can we make different pieces of knowledge work in an organization? Is it knowledge transfer? Knowledge transfer would mean that all the knowledge is transferred from one people on the other to make things work, but that is not necessary. There's 4 different mechanisms that save you time and effort for doing this. The 4 mechanisms are rules and directives, sequencing, and routines. Rules and directives is think about when you have workshop employees who produce something, and you have an expert in quality management, product quality. Does he or she have to transfer all his knowledge, all his ideas, all his insights about product quality on the workers? You would probably say, no, this is not what happens. But what he or she does is actually, he sets up rules that have to be followed. And these rules and directives, these carry a necessary amount of knowledge to make product quality high. So the established rules and the established procedures take away the need to transfer knowledge between people. Knowledge integration through sequencing. So in a certain production process, you don't have to know the whole production process. For some production processes, it's even not desired for the firm that one person has the whole knowledge of the production process. You have to be specialist in your field, in your production slot, and nothing else. So the integration of knowledge, of specialized specialists' knowledge, is by carrying out the activities based on the knowledge in a sequential way. So also this reduces the need for knowledge transfer between people collaborating, working together in an organization. And of course, there's routines. Routines are complex patterns of behavior triggered by a relatively small number of signals or choices. So imagine you have a surgical team performing a heart transplant or something like that, which is a very, very, very complex pattern of interaction. But of course, not everybody involved has to know what happens. So maybe the surgical nurse only responds to key words, and she exactly then knows what she has to do. So the head surgeon says scalpel, and the nurse knows exactly what he means. Maybe the anesthetist only does not look at the whole procedure, doesn't have to know about the whole procedure. He only listens to maybe the heart rate, looks at the heart rate monitor. If there is a signal that something is wrong, then he starts with his routines, etc. So these routines and these signals that are exchanged do not require overall knowledge transfer between the individuals who work together, but these routines and the signals can give rise to really, really complex patterns of interaction. Last but not least, these three mechanisms, so rules, sequencing, and routines, try to minimize communication between people. But of course, there is tasks where you need a lot of communication, where you need more communication, etc. So these kind of complex tasks, personal or group coordination, etc., needs meetings, etc. And this is where innovation actually comes in. For these kind of innovation activities, or for innovation activities, which would probably fall under this category, it is important that you have meetings, group problem solving, etc. So not every communication within an organization, not every exchange of knowledge can be substituted by the three integration mechanisms that I have just outlined. Okay. So what is important that this knowledge integration in these mechanisms, actually in this last mechanism work, is that people speak the same language. Of course, when you work in a team, you want to speak the same language. And language, we do not only mean the same natural language, but of course, you can speak of the same topical language, field language that you have. So maybe when we talk about significance as statistical specialists, we mean something else, something completely different than when a legal scholar talks about significance. So we need to have the same language. We need to know what the others are actually talking about. And of course, you will have numerous examples in the back of your head where this actually went wrong. Other forms of symbolic communication. Teams sometimes only work when you have the same software, the same idea of how to deal with numbers. You look at the same ways of statistics, etc. So this compatibility is really important for knowledge integration. Of course, you can now think how knowledge integration can be hampered in a merger and acquisition when you have two different types of accounting software, and these are not harmonized. Of course, you run into problems into knowledge integration. I mean, this is not rocket. This is not new news, but still. You need shared specialized knowledge, shared meaning. So what does it mean that you work together? You need common cognitive frameworks so that you can integrate what other experts are contributing. And of course, when you work together with people from another field, with other specialists, you should appreciate other specialists' knowledge and expertise. So not like what we have seen over and over again in engineering firms or firms with a strong engineering ethos, that engineers said, these management folks, whatever they do, etc. Though there was no appreciation. Or in the same type of firms, the management folks said, these engineers, they always over-engineer. Have they never heard about Pareto, etc.? So you need to be aware of the other specialists' repertoire of knowledge, and you have to appreciate this. And knowledge, of course, means experience as well. Now, these are two underlying theories that you would learn to appreciate once you start thinking about innovation strategy or strategy in more general. Is there any question, any comment up to here that we have to clarify before we continue? If not, then let's continue. Let's first look at what actually is a strategy. A strategy is nothing more than a commitment to a set of coherent, mutually reinforcing policies and behaviors aimed at achieving a specific competitive goal. So this is what Pisano says. A commitment, set of coherent policies and behaviors, and the target of a strategy is a specific competitive goal. Why do we have this? And what do strategies actually do? So strategies are important to promote alignment. You have different groups in an organization, you have different departments in an organization, and you want them to focus, to work together towards a common goal. And of course, you need a strategy to do this. A strategy is also helpful to clarify what is actually the objective, the goal that you're pursuing. What are the priorities that you set for pursuing these goals? And strategies help decision makers in making decisions. Without strategies, sometimes it's really hard. And of course, a strategy is some sort of focusing device. It helps you to remain focused towards a goal that you can achieve together with your fellow colleagues in the firm, your social organization, which is sometimes, as we have learned up here, relatively hard to coordinate between different groups and different people. So a strategy guides decisions, which is important, and it involves, of course, looking at what you already have. What kind of processes do you already have? What kind of processes do you have for the search, for the selection, for the implementation, and for the capture within your organization? An innovation strategy also defines what kind of technologies and what kind of markets a firm will actually compete on. So what is the battles that you want to fight in order to pursue this long-term strategy of being competitive? Of course, a strategy is hampered or restricted or constrained by the resources that are available to the firm. And not only today, but also, of course, in the future. So current and future initiatives may be reduced given the constraints that you have. So whenever you think about strategy, also think about the resources that are available for the firm to pursue its targets and goals. Now, to give you an example, a mental example, a mental exercise. So imagine you are running a firm and your sales department comes around and says, we have insights about ideas and needs, etc., of the largest customers that we actually have. That would be something that we should follow up in our innovation activities. At the same time, approximately the marketing department approaches you and says, we have ideas about how we can leverage the brand equity that we have, how we can expand our brand with new products, with new services, with new goods, with new services, etc. You should, in the innovation activities, take this on board. Then comes around maybe some business units that say, we have problems with our profit and loss statements. We have pressures, etc. You need to take care of this with new products. R&D has ideas about new technological development, how to integrate this into products. Stakeholders approach you as an innovation manager. Stakeholders approach you and say, we have products and services need to be more sustainable, otherwise we're missing the boat. And shareholders say, we need dividends, we need money now, and we need increasing the company value. This is good for us as shareholders. And of course, you would say all these 6 different groups, all these 6 different information signals that you receive as an innovation manager are relevant for innovation. But if you don't have a strategy, you have no idea what to focus on. You have something like an attention allocation problem. Should I look at should I follow up on the sales department, follow up on the shareholders, stakeholders, or should I include new technology developments as the R&D people suggested? You know, without a strategy, you have no idea what to do. And a strategy helps you to pick the signals that you receive that are most important for the company, given the strategy that it has. Plus, a strategy helps you to make the point. So it doesn't only help you in making the decisions, but it also helps you to make the point. So maybe in your innovation strategy, there is something about products and services that should be more sustainable, looking not only at the gross margin of the products, but you also look at maybe the CO2 footprint. Could be something in the and then you say, okay, stakeholders said more sustainable. Then it's easier for you to approach the shareholders, say, listen, dividends may suffer in the next year or two because we have actually rolled out the strategy to look at the CO2 footprint and reduce it. You can say to R&D department and say, okay, give us the ideas that you have, give us the ideas of the new technological development that relate to our CO2 footprint reduction. Sometimes you have to say to the business units, we're sorry, solve your problems yourself. What our targets are, you know, more sustainable products, maybe that helps you in the long run. Again, marketing, sales, you know, you can argue in favor of your decision when you can back it up with a strategic direction that you are following. So this is the nice thing about strategy. And if you look at something like Corning glass, I think we have mentioned Corning glass once when we talked about the Pilkington process. So that the Pilkington process, you remember, that revolutionized the flat glass process. And I mentioned that Gorilla Glass and Corning glass is something a little bit different. So Corning glass is a company founded in the US, upstate New York. I think it's the city of Corning. And it is a leading manufacturer of components for electronic displays, telecom systems, environmental products, life science instruments, etc. So a brief strategy that they have is to manufacture and sell keystone components to improve the complex product systems of customers. Okay, manufacture and sell glass components. And if you now look at their innovation strategy, that if you look at this, you may think, oh, this is strange. How is this? Why do they do this? They have a centralized R&D in upstate New York. So not spread around, upstate New York, city of Corning, that's where they do their R&D. They still do basic research. They still do basic research, not like many other firms who have abandoned basic research in the 70s and 80s. Corning Glass still does that. They invest in manufacturing technology, and they still manufacture most of their products in the US. So why does that make sense? Why does that make sense given the overall strategy, manufacture and selling keystone components? Well, if you look at glass, and this is here the second glass example that we have today, Swarovski was one as well, is that there is not much knowledge dispersion about R&D in glass around the world. So there is no academic hotspot of glass research around. As a matter of fact, glass research is not very prominent in academia as well. So very little, if at all, any university specializes in glass research or has a unit in glass research. So what Corning Glass has is they do basic R&D because there is not many other organizations out there that they can refer to for their basic research. They do centralized R&D in upstate New York to have everybody together for easy transfer of money, of knowledge, I'm sorry, easy transfer of knowledge for close interaction, and to make use of the experience that has accumulated in this area in upstate New York. They do not only do basic research, but they also invest in manufacturing technology because, of course, they want do not only innovate the material, but of course, they also innovate their production processes and their production facilities. So they need investments there. And they manufacture their products in the US, of course, because some of the largest customers are still in the US, and they like to be close to the customers to be able to quickly improve when they see there's something not working at all. So without a strategy, these activities would look maybe different, would look random and arbitrary. But in the backdrop of the strategy, we see that what they're doing really makes sense. Now, is there a question up to here? Question, comment, etc.? Not. Then we continue. There's two ways of thinking about a strategy. There's the rationalist way of thinking about strategy, and there's the incrementalist thinking about strategy. So the most prominent rationalist strategy protagonist was Igor Antsov, and the most prominent one for the incrementalist is Henry Mintzberg. The rationalist strategy. The rationalist strategy, of course, it is now a stereotype, a very, very rough stereotype. There's between the rationalist and incrementalist, there's it's not only black and white, there's a lot of gray in between. Okay, so the rationalist strategy process is you try to describe and understand and analyze the environment, what actually is going on, and where you want to go, and based on these insights, you write down a plan with milestones, check marks, etc., for the course of action, and then you do it. So this whole idea builds on a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you look at the internal conditions of the firm, strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, the external conditions. You make a plan and you do it. That's, you know, the rationalist strategy. The incrementalist strategy is a little bit different. The incrementalist strategy is you have a target and you look at more tiny steps. You make deliberate steps where you believe that these steps lead you towards your target. And once you have carried out these steps, you have implemented certain initiatives, you start measuring and evaluating what effects these implemented measures actually had. And then you have, you know, two options, more or less. One is you find that these steps really lead you towards your target, then you continue. If you find that these steps that you implemented do not lead you towards your target, you adjust and decide on the next step and you start over again. you measure, evaluate steps, etc. So you proceed in a circle, in multiple circles. You probably know this already. Build, measure, learn. This is, this incrementalist strategy towards new products. So this incrementalist strategy, you see this over and over again. For instance, you go to a doctor, you have a symptom, they give you a diagnosis and some treatment, and after maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you come back, and again the question is, has it improved? Did it help you? Then next round of the diagnosis, an adjusted treatment, etc. You make this over and over again. It's developing a strategy in a very complex type of system. So target is always clear. Target is the cure here. Also, in engineering, you try out something, you measure whether it works. If it worked, you continue. If it did not work, you design again, you test, you retest, and the overall target is, of course, that what you do or what you design that works and operates well. So this incrementalist strategy we see more often than you would actually believe. And of course, this rationalist strategy we see as well. And sometimes I have the impression that the reality is somewhere in between this, on the continuum between rationalist and incrementalist strategies. What does that mean for management, actually, this strategy? If you think of the incrementalist strategy, it's about learning. You develop knowledge on what works and what doesn't. And what works and what doesn't is very contingent on the situation that you have in the organization. So you may change your strategies, you may change your approaches towards strategy in the light of new evidence. You look at your strategic process in small, tiny steps, etc. So that is important. And what you can always say is, once somebody comes around and says, I have an approach towards successful strategy making, don't believe them. They certainly are oversimplifying. There's no simple recipes for successful strategy making. You have to learn this within your organization. And successful management, I think I'm not the first one saying this. Probably you have heard this over and over again in your courses. Successful management is always context dependent. So observe the context in your organization, observe the context of the recipe. If you find something like a blueprint for a strategy, for an approach, and look at whether these contexts actually match. Otherwise, you run the risk that it will not work. Now, we have talked about strategies. The question is, what kind of strategy, what kind of choices do you actually make in strategies? As I said, it defines what are the technologies, what are the markets you want to compete in, what are the resources that you have available, and how do you want to develop knowledge, or how do you want to acquire knowledge is also important. I think one of the most important decisions that you have to make as a company is, do you want to be a leader or do you want to be a follower? And now I ask you, what have you learned? Is it better to be a leader or is it better to be a follower? What do you think? Leader or follower? Yeah, just shoot. Right. Open the microphone, say something, Miss Siegsmund.
I mean, when you are a leader, you have a first mover advantage, so that's a very good thing. But there are a few risks, so I don't think that there's a better or a less better. It always depends on the situation.
Wonderful. Very, very good response. It depends, and indeed it depends. And you brought in one of the key terms that comes to mind when we talk about leader or follower. We talk about leadership or followership. We talk about the first mover advantage, which is the image, the image with the bird here. So the early bird catches the worm. That's the message of the first mover advantage. And typically you hear about the first mover advantage in a lot of courses. The question is there a second mover advantage as well? So not the early bird catches the worm, but the second mouse eats the cheese. This is over here, second mouse eats the cheese. And now if we look at certain technologies or certain innovations, I've picked some where the domination of the market, so the winner of the market was the follower. This is, of course, not representative. And I picked them by choice because the first mover advantage is clear to everybody. You know, you have been exposed to the first mover advantage over your bachelor's course, over all of the bachelor's courses that you have taken. But the second mover advantage may be something new, and maybe I need to convince you that sometimes second movers have the ability to win over the market. So in commercial jet planes, the first commercial jet plane for, I don't know, people transport was the Comet by de Havilland. And it was a marvelous piece of engineering again, and Boeing was not on the market with a commercial jet plane at that point of time. The problem occurred when there was some catastrophic crashes of the comets, and that was a heavy blow to de Havilland. That was a heavy blow to the comets, etc. What Boeing did, they looked very closely on the findings of where the problems were with the de Havilland. And it turned out that the de Havilland had windows with rectangular edges, with rectangular corners. And these rectangular corners with the pressure in the cabin and low pressure outside of the cabin, etc., were structurally not that robust as it was hoped for by de Havilland. So what Boeing did was they built into their 707 that was under engineering at that point of time, they built in windows with rounded corners. So now when you look at airplanes, you only have airplanes with rounded corners in the windows. No rectangular corners there anymore. And having been delivered a heavy blow, de Havilland was down, and Boeing took over the market as a second mover when they entered the market with their 707. Okay, so second mover advantage here, good. CT scanner, EMI, an electronics company from the UK, they earned buckets full of money with a record label that they had. They were, this here is in the early 70s. They earned a lot with Beatles records, and they invested these Beatles record money, revenues into developing medical diagnosis devices, the CT scanner. Problem was that EMI as an electronics company did not have networks in university hospitals to establish reference customers, etc. GE, who were for a longer time in the X-ray business, etc., they had these customers and could, with their second generation CT scanner, although they were slower, win the market because they had the right people around. Okay, and so you can still tell stories about a lot of technologies where followers win. Do you have maybe stories where followers won that are more current? Do you know something about this? Okay, we actually continue. And the overall question here is, when do we enter the market? When do we want to enter the market? Do we want to be first, or do we want to be second? Being first is, as we have heard, very, very interesting, because you have the first mover advantage. Being second can also be nice, because you learn from mistakes from the first movers, etc. And in this field, Kim and Bon published a book that is called the Blue Ocean Strategy. And I have put a brief summary of this book into a link into the study guide, so you can have an idea. Here, Kim Bon looked at 150 initiatives in 30 industries over a pretty long period of time, as you will see. And they said, well, an interesting strategy is not that you want to outperform competition in existing industries, as some of the ideas when we talk about competitive advantage make or suggest to us. No, it is important that you create new markets, blue oceans, that make competition irrelevant. And Kim Bon produced some systematic and reproducible methods for developing these kind of innovations. So we have two innovations, and forgive me, I have sometimes problem with differentiating between red and green, and I assume that this box that is called Red Ocean Strategy is more green than it would be red. But the Blue Ocean, I think I picked the right blue. Anyway, so the Red Ocean Strategy, although the box seems to be a little bit more green. The Blue Ocean Strategy is to create uncontested markets, so markets where there is nobody around. The idea is to make competition irrelevant and create a new demand, create a new niche, and capture it. And what you can do in a Blue Ocean Strategy is, there is not a value cost trade-off. There is not this trade-off, as Porter said in his generic strategies, that you have to be either cost leader or quality leader, if you like. If you try to be both, Porter said, you're stuck in the middle. In the Blue Ocean Strategy, that does not seem to be the case. You can be differentiating and you can be low cost. So try to find uncontested markets. A Red Ocean Strategy is you go in where a lot of other companies are already. You try to beat them. You try to be better than them. You exploit what is already out there. You exploit the existing demand. You have to make choices, either differentiation or low cost, not both. So red ocean strategy is a strategy that tries to outcompete competitors, and a blue ocean strategy is a strategy that doesn't even recognize that there is competitors, because competition is irrelevant. So if you want to look at a blue ocean strategy, look across alternative industries, bring stuff together from different industries, look at across strategic groups within the industry. Do not fall into the traps that you let your thoughts guide by what is typically done. Try to refine customer groups. Try to find a customer group that a certain industry has never served. Maybe you can build something for this customer group. Look across complementary products and services. Maybe you can combine those. Look at the combination of emotions and functions in an industry, and try to shape trends over time. I'll give you a couple of examples, 3 actually. Cirque du Soleil is entered a blue ocean. Cirque du Soleil is founded in 1984, as we read here, and it invented the circus industry. The circus industry is or was highly competitive. You know, all these circuses going from one city to another, and never two circuses in a city at the same time to avoid competition, etc. Now, what did Cirque du Soleil actually do? It combined ideas from Broadway, theater, opera, etc. into circus, and it redefined the customer group. It redefined the customer group as families, businesses, for incentive kind of evening events, etc. It is not for families. It was only for adults. It's not for families because Cirque du Soleil is not interesting for kids because there is no animals. Okay, so they eliminated a piece that was standard in the industry, in the circus industry, eliminated that, integrated other elements, and suddenly they had a new customer group. And of course, circus for business customers, circus for adults only, that wasn't around at that time. And I can hardly think of anything other than Cirque du Soleil when we think about circus for adults, etc. Gis-et-Déco found a blue ocean in the outdoor advertising industry. They had street furniture. They put out street furniture. Street furniture is this, you know, bus stands, tram waiting points, etc., outdoor billboards, etc. So their business model, their blue ocean, were municipalities that had old bus stands, etc. They needed a replacement here, and Gis-et-Déco delivered them for either very low price or no price. But what they had was, of course, you see it here in the back, outdoor advertising areas. And of course, they were the ones renting out these outdoor advertising areas. And so with this, they became a very big actor in the outdoor advertising industry. So a new business model, no company was there doing the same thing. And sometimes the blue ocean is not a niche. Sometimes blue ocean can be the mass market as well. For instance, or especially when you have a product or a good that is very niche at this point of time. And the cars at the beginning or at the turn from the 19th to the 20th century were a very, very niche industry. As you see, 500 car makers in the US that only produced custom-made cars for very affluent people. And the Henry Ford changed this, thought about the mass market. There was no car industry that addressed the mass market. And how could he do that? He produced the car at a very competitive, very low price. He again reduced the custom-made dimension of the 500 other car makers. There was only one model, there was only one color. The whole thing, the whole Model T, was easy to repair, it was easy to maintain. And when something is easy to repair and easy to maintain, it may be easy to produce, which the Model T was. And when something is easy to produce, you can use, or Henry Ford used unskilled labor in his assembly lines, and he put these modular cars in, or assembled these modular cars in the famous Fordist assembly line. So that made it easy, that made it cheap, that made it easy to produce, etc. And this car paved the way for the car industry in the whole of the world, you may say. Okay, so this is the it's also a blue ocean, not a blue ocean in a niche, but a blue ocean in a mass market. Okay, is there any questions, any comments, anything that we need to clarify at that point? If not, we meet each other on Tuesday next week, 10:15. I'll send you the link, and we meet again for the Christmas lecture, and see you then. Bye-bye.